You're listening to the WrestleHavoc Podcast on YouTube, where we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. We talk all that goes on in the realm of WWE and AEW every week. And now, here's your host, the one that will give you a reality check on pro wrestling, Flamin' Ricky Duraeus. This is the WrestleHavoc Podcast.
What's up, everybody? It is Flamin' Ricky Duraeus, right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast, here to review Friday Night SmackDown from June 23rd, 2023. We definitely have a lot of things to go through right here on the SmackDown Review. To be quite honest with you, this was a show that offered nothing of importance at all. And that is the exact thing that you see on the thumbnail of this video. This show offered nothing of importance whatsoever. The only thing important was the Usos and the main event, nothing else. And even that even offered nothing special. Of course, we're on the fallout from last week's amazing ending of SmackDown, in which we had Jimmy and Jey Uso super kick the shit out of Roman Reigns. And from what it looks like, the bloodline is no more, and it's official. It is going to be a bloodline civil war not this coming Saturday, next Saturday in London at the O2 Arena for Money in the Bank. It is going to be Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa taking on Jimmy and Jey, the Usos, at Money in the Bank. That match is going to be fantastic, man, especially for the crowd in London. But this show offered nothing of importance. Nothing special happened on this show. The matches, the segments, nothing at all. Apparently, this show was changed a lot by Vince McMahon. We were supposed to get a triple threat match with LA Knight, Rey Mysterio, and Santos Escobar. Instead, we got a one-on-one match between Rey Mysterio and LA Knight. We had a WWE and NXT Women's Tag Team Title Unification match with Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler taking on Alba, Fyre, and Isla Dawn. The match wasn't important whatsoever, in my opinion. I didn't really view it as a monumental moment or nothing of that nature. But I will say the match was fine. But, of course, Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler won those titles. And from what it looks like, we're now going to be getting Ronda Rousey on NXT, which, honestly, I don't want to see that whatsoever. I mean, granted, I don't even watch NXT, so I could care less of it. I could care less, but, I mean, who gives a damn? We had the Grayson Waller effect with Pretty Deadly. You guys know my thoughts on the Grayson Waller effect. I think it's a shitty segment in my opinion. And I'm not really the biggest fan of Grayson Waller in my eyes. He's a great talent, but I don't really see nothing in him. Do I think he will be a star in the future? Maybe. But right now, I do not see it, in my opinion at least. We had the Street Profits versus Pretty Deadly. Nobody gave a damn. We had Charlotte Flair versus Lacey Evans. Yeah, Charlotte Flair versus Lacey Evans. Lacey Evans, the woman that told Sammy Guevara he couldn't roll at the PC. Nothing really special of that nature as well. So pretty much, man, this show was, I don't want to say a train wreck, but really, if you think about it, it kind of was a train wreck. And I've been praising SmackDown for like how many months now? I thought SmackDown is clearly the better show overall, but again, man, there's some weeks where the show is just like, what really is the point? And what really sucks is that Roman Reigns is not on the show. And really, when Roman Reigns is not on the show, you can definitely tell there's something missing with SmackDown. And unfortunately, Roman Reigns is it. And he's going to be on SmackDown next week. SmackDown next week is going to be emanating from the O2 Arena in London, England. I assume that show is going to be taped, considering, the time difference in London and here in the U.S. But it's going to be a great show regardless, man. The crowd, let me tell you guys, the crowd in London is going to be one of the best crowds that we've ever seen in WWE history, and I mean that wholeheartedly. UK crowds are the most passionate crowds in all of wrestling. They are. I do think some UK fans are crazy, but they are fucking awesome at the same time. But I will say this, SmackDown was not really that good of a show, and you know what? Hopefully next week is better, but since it's the go-home show and it's going to be in London, I assume it's definitely going to be better, especially when Roman Reigns is going to be on the show. But before I get on with all this craziness regarding Friday Night SmackDown, please make sure to like and subscribe to the WrestleHavoc Podcast right here on YouTube, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and, as the frickin' referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. If you guys have missed it, episode 19 of the WrestleHavoc Podcast is up on the channel. We talk about a top name leaving in a bad mood after CM Punk's 5-minute appearance on Dynamite, in which he was told to do, and him being described as a ticking time bomb. I talk a lot about this and how this is so stupid, and clearly the person that told this shit to Dave Meltzer is not a top guy whatsoever, in my opinion. But I talk about all that and much more news on episode 19 of the WrestleHavoc Podcast. So if you guys haven't checked it out, the link will be in the description below. Also, the AEW Dynamite review is up on the channel. I talk about the go-home show before this Sunday's Forbidden Door pay-per-view. I talk about Bryan Danielson and Kazuchika Okada going face-to-face. Overall, I thought it was a great go-home show before Forbidden Door. Forbidden Door is going to be an all-timer, man. I gave my predictions on episode 19, so if you guys haven't checked out episode 19, please check it out because I give my predictions on Forbidden Door. And I'm actually going to be clipping some clips from episode 19 and uploading them as separate uploads on YouTube, so be on the lookout for those as well. But the Dynamite review is up on the channel, and hopefully you guys check it out. The link will be in the description below. All right, let's start off with SmackDown. The show kicks off with Jimmy and Jay, the Usos, the two men that super kicked Roman Reigns. Jay Uso, the guy that swerved Jimmy Uso thinking he was going to join Roman Reigns, but instead he joined his own flesh and blood, and we got a bunch of Uso chants by the crowd. And Jay is about to go for the bloodline is now in your city, but then Jimmy stops Jay and says, you know, the Usos are now in your city. Jimmy says he's feeling good. He's feeling real good. Yo, Jay, how you been feeling, baby? We got a bunch of Usi chants by the crowd. Y'all remember Usi, right? Yo, if he can be 100% right now, we about to fight our own family, Us. Family, don't do that. They supposed to lift each other up, get each other's back, and make sure from the bottom to the top we get each other's backs. From day one, Jimmy says, Jay, you made the perfect choice, dog. Just like Roman, we still love you too, Us. We do. You're the tribal chief. For 3 years, we were in the trenches. He tells them everything they needed to do, but where he messed up, he disrespected him and his brother. Jimmy says, we were raised on respect, and they fell in line. And when they did became, the ones, that was what ran with respect. When you started to show us we weren't worth nothing, guess what? Yo ass is in the island of relevancy all alone. You and the biggest snake of them all, Us. Jay says, you can't forgive the outside of the house and the circle. Sounding like rats, the biggest snake of them all is Paul Heyman. For 40 years, he wants to claim he has respect for their family. He met them at 4 years old. How could he take orders from somebody that would drive a wedge on two brothers that were built on love and respect? Now, they will go to London. We will go to war with their family. You looking at the best tag team in the game, the best tag team in the world. Ain't no singles competition. On July 1st in London, 0-2 at Money in the Bank, Roman Reigns, Solo Sikoa. Welcome to the Uso Penitentiary. Overall thoughts on this opening segment. This was fantastic. I thought the opening promo by Jimmy and Jay was great. I wish there was still more involvement with Roman Reigns, but Roman was not on the show, of course, due to his really great schedule that he got. But overall, this was a great promo by Jimmy and Jay, of course, on the fallout from last week's ending, anticlimactic ending on SmackDown, man. Like, every Bloodline segment that closed off SmackDown is always, topping itself. It's always topping itself. And, of course, we are going to be getting Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa versus the Usos at Money in the Bank, and that is going to be a freaking classic. If you guys haven't checked out the graphic that WWE put out on their social media, holy crap, bro. It looks so badass. Like, I want to really, I want WWE Shop to sell that poster so I can just put it up on my wall because it's, so good. But, nonetheless, great opening promo by Jimmy and Jay. It was great. Jimmy, of course, said his piece. Jay said his piece. What's interesting is that this match could literally go either way. We could either have the Usos go over, or we could have Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa go over. It all depends what Roman has up his sleeve. That's really the interesting part. Are we going to be getting a new member of the Bloodline? Because people need to realize the NOI family is a big-ass family, and there's still wrestlers that are, wrestling right now, I believe, on the independents. A lot of people are pointing out Joe NOI as one of the members, but I don't see that being the case. But overall, man, Great segment, great opening segment, and one of the very few things that was actually pretty good on this SmackDown show. In our next segment, or I should say in our first match of the evening, we had Rey Mysterio taking on LA Knight. Originally, this was supposed to be a triple threat match. It was supposed to be Rey Mysterio, LA Knight, and Santos Escobar, but instead, it turned into a one-on-one match. Now, that's very weird in my opinion, considering I would have much rather seen a triple threat match because I'm a big fan of Santos Escobar. But nonetheless, this match was fine. Apparently, Vince McMahon made a lot of changes on this SmackDown show, and Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful said it was vinced. Like, this show got vinced. It's a funny word. You should say that, man, because like every time when Triple H tries to do something good, Vince McMahon turns it into shit. But overall, great match. I feel like the right man won. LA Knight should have won this match, and he did. We get a kick by Knight. He sends Rey headfirst onto the turnbuckle. He drives through Rey into the corner. He sends Rey into the corner chest first, and then we get a stomp onto the head of Rey. We then get a drop kick by Rey, and then he takes Rey to the middle rope. LA Knight is on the apron, but then he hits a running kick on Rey. We get a flying shoulder tackle by LA Knight, and then we get a cover and a near fall. We then get a kick by Rey, and then we get the head scissors by Rey, taking LA Knight into the corner. After that, we get repeated right hands by Rey, but then LA Knight goes for the Alabama Slam attempt, but Rey holds on to the ropes. LA Knight then gets taken to the second rope. Rey goes for the 619. Then Rey goes to the top, but then LA Knight goes on the apron. We get the baseball slide by Rey, taking LA to the outside, but then we get a running, sliding splash by Rey on the outside on the floor on LA Knight. Once we're back from commercial break, LA Knight ends up going for a neck breaker, but then we get a cover by LA Knight and a kick out. LA Knight picks up Rey, but then Rey counters and drives LA to the corner, head first onto the turnbuckle. After that, Rey off the top hits a senton. We get a springboard crossbody by Rey Mysterio, and then we get a cover and another near fall. We get a series of right hands by Rey on LA Knight. LA Knight then catches Rey and plants him with the slam, but then LA Knight goes for an elbow drop. We get a cover by LA Knight and a near fall. We get a back elbow by Rey. We get a springboard moonsault by Rey, getting caught by LA Knight, but then Rey counters back with a DDT. We then get an enziguri by Rey, taking Knight to the middle rope. Knight catches the 619 attempt by Rey Mysterio. He has him up. Rey escapes, and then Knight catches the legs of Rey, and then he tries to throw down Rey Mysterio, but then Rey lands on his feet. LA Knight then goes for the BFT, the blunt face trauma. After the match, LA Knight tries to remove the mask of Rey Mysterio, and at this point, LA Knight already won the match. Santos Escobar runs in for the save, and of course, this is building up for the Money in the Bank ladder match coming up next Saturday in London at Money in the Bank. LA Knight should win the Money in the Bank. Knowing WWE, they're probably not going to have LA Knight win Money in the Bank because, of course, Logan Paul is now added in the match. And knowing WWE, they don't give a single shit. No matter what the schedule of Logan Paul has, they're going to put the Money in the Bank on this, man. Watch this shit happen. But let's be real here. LA Knight deserves the Money in the Bank. He just deserves the Money in the Bank, period, because I've always said this every week. By the end of this year, LA Knight is going to become one of the hottest acts in the company. He just is. You know, I talked about this on episode 19. And I talked about how LA Knight was talking about how they changed him into Max Dupree because they were concerned about his age. He's roughly like 40 years old. You know, it's so funny, man. LA Knight embodies everything that WWE wants in a wrestler. But instead, they were so concerned about their age, but it's so hypocritical on their part because they're the same people that literally put the belt on Goldberg, who was in his like mid-50s. Think about that for a second. Goes to show you the hypocrisy of the previous management. Solo Sikoa is backstage. He runs into Ridge Holland, but all of a sudden Solo Sikoa gets so pissed off and he hits the Simone Spike. Solo says that we're not in the mood tonight, and after that, Paul Heyman has this just scared look on his face, like what the fuck? And he has the phone and he calls Roman Reigns. Adam Pearce backstage with Ridge Holland. Of course, Rich is getting medical help. After that, Sheamus comes in, and he asks Adam Pearce that he wants Solo tonight. After that, Sheamus comes out with the microphone, and he challenges him to a fight, and he tells him to get his ass in the middle of that ring and get ready for the fight of your life. After that, we got Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler versus Alba, Fyre, and Isla Dawn in a unification match of the WWE and NXT Women's Tag Team Championships. You guys know my take on the women's tag team titles. They're the most useless titles, not only in WWE, but they're the most useless titles in the business today. But was this match good or not? I actually thought the match was fine. Now, the only thing that I have to complain about is the fact that WWE would be spending all this time airing all of these video packages of Alba Fyre and Isla Dawn only for them to lose their NXT Women's Tag Team titles to Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler. Now, it was pretty obvious that Ronda and Shayna were going to win those titles regardless. Did you honestly expect Ronda and Shayna to lose this match? Absolutely not. They were going to win this shit regardless. But still, you be building up Alba Fyre and Isla Dawn. You be calling them up to the main roster only to lose to Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler. What a waste of a call-up, in my opinion. Absolute waste of a call-up. But the match wasn't bad, but still, this match offered, in my opinion, nothing of importance because of how just not important those titles are. Those titles just mean absolutely nothing whatsoever. One thing I will say about this match is Alba Fyre and Isla Dawn actually did look strong in this match. They actually had a lot of offense throughout the majority of this whole match, so that was one good takeaway I can have for this match. Shayna goes after Fyre. We get a back elbow by Fyre, and then Isla Dawn tags in. We get a knee by Dawn, but then she goes to the top, and then she applies her legs on Shayna. We then get a kick by Fyre, and then we get a cover by Dawn and a near fall. Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention, Raquel Rodriguez is watching this match next to the commentary team. Ronda makes the tag, and then we get a kick by Ronda. We get a series of arm drags by Ronda, and then she goes after Dawn. And then we get a kick by Dawn on Ronda. At this point, Fyre makes the tag, and then she sweeps Ronda by running the ropes. And then she hits a right hand. We then get a cover by Fyre and a near fall. We get a series of frequent tags, and we get a double team attempt by Alba and Fyre. Then we get a slam by Fyre, and then we get the Meteor by Dawn, and then we get a cover and a near fall. Ronda gets sent into the corner, but then we get a kick to the back of the leg of Ronda. After that, Ronda gets up on her shoulders. After that, Shayna comes in. Ronda goes for the head scissors after Shayna interferes, and then once we're back from commercial break, Ronda is in control over Alba Fyre. After that, Ronda applies the ankle lock on Fyre, but then Fyre counters with the enziguri. Shayna tags in, she goes after Dawn, and then we get a knee strike on Fyre. After that, we get a cover and a kick out at 2. After that, Fyre escapes Shayna. Dawn tags in, we get repeated clotheslines by Dawn, and then we get a kick by Shayna once again. We then get a high kick by Dawn, and then we get a back suplex by Dawn. She goes to the top, and then she goes for the Meteora. We then get a cover by Dawn and a near fall. Ronda is on the apron, and then she hits a kick, and then Shayna applies the Karabuta clutch. After that, we get a swanton by Fyre. Ronda comes in. We get a tope, a.k.a. suicide dive by Fyre. Fyre makes the tag, and then we get a backslide attempt by Fyre, but then Shayna applies the Karabuta clutch once again. Ronda then goes for the armbar at the same time on Isla Dawn. Fyre and Dawn tap out. Ronda and Shayna are your new Unified Women's Tag Team Champions. After that, Ronda gets the mic, and every time when Ronda Rousey gets the mic, you know it's going to be a shit show. She calls out Raquel Rodriguez. She says, "Where are you going? What are you doing here in the first place?" Raquel then comes into the ring, and she says she is here because she wants a rematch for those titles that we never lost. And then Shayna says, "We? Who is we?" She remembers tearing them limb by limb. How many times has Shayna Baszler have to say limb by limb? Jesus Christ. Liv Morgan then comes out. And yes, Liv Morgan makes her return after her minor injury, which basically forced Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan to relinquish those women's tag team titles. And after that, both teams face off, and Shayna and Ronda leave the ring. So it looks like we're going to be getting a match down the line between Raquel and Liv taking on Shayna and Ronda for the Unified Women's Tag Team titles. Could I care? Absolutely not. I don't give a single shit whatsoever. Those titles are absolutely useless, and you made them worse just by unifying them with the NXT Women's Tag Team titles. You basically unified tag team titles that made no sense with other tag team titles that made absolutely no sense, and you made them into a giant bag of tag team titles that made no sense. That's the whole definition of the Unified Women's Tag Team titles. That's all I'm going to say about that. Here's another shit show. We had the Grayson Waller effect. You guys know my thoughts on the Grayson Waller effect, or talk shows in general in WWE. I think WWE overdoes like talk show segments all the time. It's so stupid. Like AEW did it like once, and I believe that was Britt Baker and Jade Cargill. I think that was like once, and I didn't like that either. I don't know why. I just hate talk show segments. I just do. I don't know why. Something about them. It just screams cringe to me, especially with this whole Grayson Waller effect. Look, I think Grayson Waller is great at what he does, but for some reason, I'm just not a fan of him. I just do not think he comes off as genuine as possible. Maybe I may be bullshitting you guys maybe a couple years down the line, But again, I'm not the biggest Grayson Waller fan. I'm really not. I've been seeing the stuff that he's been doing in NXT, and thing is like he would be posting videos of like beating people up on like Instagram and shit, and I'm looking like, bro, that is the most forced shit I've ever seen in my life. With all due respect. Look, Grayson Waller is talented, but to me, he comes off as forced. He says, welcome to the hottest talk show in WWE. Oh, Jesus Christ. The Grayson Waller effect. Speaking of honest, Grayson Waller is the hottest new superstar. No, you're not. In WWE. Tonight, his guest is the hottest new tag team in WWE. No, they're not. Welcomes Kit Wilson and Elton Prince. Pretty Deadly. So Pretty Deadly come out. Grayson says that they deserve fancy chairs. And Pretty Deadly's like, yes, boy. This is their favorite talk show. Wow, really? So you don't watch Jimmy Fallon? You don't watch, the Conan O'Brien show? So this is your favorite talk show? Wow. So much better than the KO show. Grayson says he has people with style, and Americans have zero banner. Talks about the two of them. They've been here for 2 months, and they have so much success that next week on SmackDown, from their home country of London, wait, their home country? You mean their home city of England? Their home country of England and their home city of London. Jesus Christ, I'm like so tongue-tied. This whole segment is so terrible. I'm just like, what the fuck am I watching? They face KO and Sammy for the undisputed tag titles. Wilson says, shout out to the royalty, the greatest city, that being London. Oh, you actually call London a city now. They're talking about it they're taking it pretty deadly serious. These are men that won the first night of WrestleMania, and they aren't giving them the respect that they deserve. We got a bunch of shut up chants. You should have done shut the fuck up chants, but instead you guys were so lame, and I believe, where were they? In Kentucky or Louisiana? I have no idea. You got a bunch of shut up chants. What is surprising about them winning championships before? Him and Kit, they have brain. Sue Brain. They were always on the same page, and 10 years, when they run the tag team division, Grayson says he isn't surprised. Talks about last week, the two of them, they were in the Iron Man Gauntlet match. They beat 5 of the best teams in all of WWE. In one match in one night, Wilson says the Iron Man match on Friday Night SmackDown. Prince says that was the match that they didn't know they could have continued. Wilson says that they did it in blood, sweat, and tears. The Brawling Brutes was a great team. They lasted all the way till the end, but they beat them. The LWO, great shirt, great team, but they beat them. The OC, great team, but they beat them. Hit Row came in, and let's not talk about Hit Row because they're garbage. They beat them. Street Profits, and then after they mentioned the Street Profits actually come out. And Ford asks Dawkins if they said their name, and you know what? Your boys are back in SmackDown Blue, and if these guys want to introduce them to the smoke, the Street Profits are up, and we want the smoke. So after that, we got the Street Profits versus Pretty Deadly. You guys know I was struggling reading through this segment. Number 1, my notes were shit. And number 2, this segment was just so goddamn bad. I just absolutely wanted to, scramble through this segment because, again, I fucking despise talk show segments in WWE. WWE does this shit, all the time. And to the point where I'm just like, bro, really? Can we, stop with these talk show segments, please? I don't know why, man. It's, such a Vince McMahon thing that, we're getting it every week with Grayson Waller, and it gets worse and worse and worse. Please, stop with this shit. It's dumb. So we got the Street Profits versus Pretty Deadly. Ford and Wilson start. We get a side headlock takeover by Ford. Ford no-sells the shoulder tackle. And then we get a side headlock by Ford. Dawkins goes for the tag, and then we get a shoulder tackle by Dawkins. We then get a right hand by Kit Wilson. And then we get a leg drop and a splash combination by Pretty Deadly. We then get a cover by Prince and a near fall. Dawkins then sends Prince into the corner. Prince goes for the boot, and then Prince falls into a boot. After that, Ford makes the tag, and then he hits a dropkick on Prince. And then he hits a dropkick on Wilson, and then we get a chop by Ford. He takes off the man brawl of Elton Prince, and Prince gets sent to the outside. Ford tries it on. We then get a double somersault by the Profits. Once we're back from commercial break, Ford is on the top. Wilson goes also to the top, and then he drives his elbows on Ford. And then he hits a headbutt on Ford, and then he tries to hit a slam, but Ford lands on Wilson off the top. Ford and Prince goes for the tag, and then we get a dropkick by Dawkins, and then we get a spinning back elbow by Dawkins. We then get a splash into the corner, and then we get an enziguri by Dawkins, and he ends up going for the silencer, and then we get a cover and a near fall. He proceeds to pick up Prince, and then we get a pounce and a back slam by Ford and Dawkins, so great double team by the Street Profits. After that, we get a cover and a near fall when Wilson makes the save. We then get a double shoulder tackle by Dawkins on Wilson on the outside. Ford goes for the Uranagi. Dawkins tags in. Uranagi by Ford, and then Dawkins tags in. Ford goes to the top, and then Wilson drops Ford onto the outside. We then get a roll-up by Prince using the ropes with the assist from Wilson. And then Pretty Deadly win the match. After that, we got Charlotte versus Lacey Evans. A nothing match. To be quite honest with you, I am not the biggest Lacey Evans fan. You guys know my thoughts. Lacey Evans sucks. She's garbage. She's terrible. Charlotte Flair, I'm not a big fan of hers. She's going to go into a match next week against Asuka for the women's title, which, honestly, I am super afraid now that she's actually going to be winning that title because Bianca Belair is actually not going to be ringside, and she's actually banned from the whole match. So, knowing WWE, we're going to have to wait and see, but Charlotte is probably going to be winning that title next week in London. Both lock up. We get a shoulder tackle by Charlotte. Charlotte walks on top of Lacey. We then get a kick on Lacey. After that, we get a series of chops by Charlotte. She picks up Lacey, but then Lacey reverses it, sending her to the corner. We get a takedown by Lacey Evans. Lacey goes to the second rope, and then we get a moonsault landing on her feet. We then get a backbreaker by Charlotte, and then face first onto the turnbuckle. After that, we get a slam by Charlotte. She hits a boot, and then she applies the figure 4 and applies the figure 8. Charlotte wins the match, and after the match, Asuka attacks Charlotte. After that, Adam Pearce is backstage. Bianca Belair comes in, and he is thinking about their title match, that being Charlotte's and Asuka's title match next week. And Adam asks what happens if they hit Bianca. And Bianca says if they come at her, she will be defending herself. And Adam Pearce says, well, of course you're going to do that, and that is the problem. Adam says that he will ban her from ringside, and she will get her shots, but Bianca Belair is pissed. Do I see a scenario of Bianca Belair still interfering in the match? Probably. I did say last week that we're probably going to set ourselves up for a Bianca Belair and Charlotte Flair match, which I'm not really that interested in, but if you really think about it, it's kind of something different. But again, the women's division and the way that they're booking the women's division is not really that good in WWE right now. And I have a feeling, man, I have like a small gut feeling in my stomach that we're probably going to be getting Charlotte Flair beating Asuka for the women's title. And imagine if she beats Asuka for the women's title. Just think about it right now. Asuka beating Bianca Belair was the right decision at Night of Champions. Imagine her title reign not even lasting as long as it's supposed to, only to lose to Charlotte Flair. Think about that. That is the most WWE shit I've ever seen in my life. But that is my thoughts on that. After that, we got our main event. This show was so bad that I'm actually scrambling through it. We got Solo Sikoa taking on Sheamus in the main event. This actually wasn't a bad match. Sheamus looked great. But again, what came out of the match? Really, let's be honest with ourselves. Nothing came out of the match whatsoever. Nothing came out of the match. So, let's go. Both men fight it out. Sheamus sends Solo into the corner. At this point, Sheamus is in control. Solo goes for a series of right hands and body shots. We then get a kick by Sheamus. He misses the bro kick attempt when Solo ducks and retreats to the outside. After that, then Sheamus goes to the outside and runs into a clothesline. We get a stomp on the hand of Solo. He takes Solo back into the ring. Solo goes for a series of shots onto the back of Sheamus. And we then get a back elbow by Sheamus, and then we get repeated rights by Sheamus. Sheamus ends up going for a boot into the corner. Sheamus then goes to the top and then hits a clothesline off the top, and then we get a cover and a near fall. Solo goes for repeated chops on Sheamus. Solo goes for repeated body shots. After that, we get a back elbow by Sheamus, but then Sheamus catches Solo and hits a lariat. Tries to go for the 10 beats of the bow ring, but then Solo fights back with a series of elbows, or back elbows, I should say. We get a kick by Sheamus once again. At this point, Sheamus is on the apron, but then he picks up Solo. Solo escapes, and he drives Sheamus to the ring post. After that, Solo sweeps Sheamus onto the apron, and then he picks up Sheamus and hits a Samoan drop on the floor, which looked absolutely brutal. After that, once we're back from commercial break, Solo is in control. Solo runs into a clothesline by Sheamus, but then Solo goes for repeated right hands. After that, Sheamus is still up. Sheamus fights back, but then Sheamus gets sent into the corner. And then he goes for the clothesline, but then we get a clothesline into the corner by Sheamus. And then he hits a slam on Solo. And then he goes for the Irish Curse backbreaker. After that, Solo's on the apron. Sheamus goes for the 10 beats once again. and he sets up the bro kick, but then he runs into a super kick by Solo Sikoa. Sheamus then hits the knee. We get a cover and a near fall. Sheamus picks up Solo, but then Sheamus gives out. But then Sheamus powers him up once again and ends up hitting the white noise. We then get a cover by Sheamus and a near fall. Sheamus gets Solo with the Celtic Cross attempt, but the back of Sheamus gives out. Solo goes for the Samoan Spike, taking Sheamus to the outside. Sheamus, or I should say Solo, ends up going for the Uranagi onto the announce table, drags Sheamus back to the barricade, and then we get a running hip attack through the barricade into the Timekeeper's table, or the Timekeeper's area, I should say. The referee calls for the bell, and it's I believe it was a double count out, or, Solo end up winning the match. I have no idea what happened. After that, Solo attacks everybody, and then what happens? The Usos come out. They proceed to gang up on Solo Sikoa, and then we get a super kick by Jay, and then we get a super kick by Jimmy. We then get the double super kick by the Usos on Solo Sikoa, and then they come back into the ring. They end up hitting the double super kick, and then the Usos go to the top, and they end up going for the double Uso splash, and the show ends with the Usos standing tall. What are my thoughts on this closing, moments after the match? It looked pretty badass. It was pretty badass, but I will say Roman Reigns not being on the show definitely affected the importance of this whole thing. Now, don't get me wrong. The feud between Roman and Solo and the Usos is fantastic. The way that they played out with, Jimmy, or I should say Jay, super kicking Roman last week was phenomenal. But the follow-up this week, nothing was really that good. Yes, the opening segment was great, and yes, I loved the fact that the Usos didn't get involved, but again, Roman is not on the show. And if Roman is not on the show, what is the point of telling this whole story? And that is the biggest problem. The biggest problem that really hindered this whole SmackDown show was Roman not being on the show. And every time when Roman is not on the show, everything turns to shit, and that really does suck. But I will say, next week on SmackDown is going to be very interesting because SmackDown is going to be in London, and it is the go-home show before Money in the Bank. And the crowd in London, for a fact, is going to be insane. And there's a lot of things that are definitely going to be transpiring, not only on SmackDown, but a lot of things that are going to be transpiring at Money in the Bank. Because let's be realistic here. The Bloodline Civil War that's going to be happening at Money in the Bank is probably going to be considered one of the best matches of the year. And I mean that wholeheartedly. This is a feud. This is a match that I'm absolutely excited for, and it could literally go either way. You could either have Roman and Solo win, or you could either have the Usos win. Or you could tell a story of Solo Sikoa questioning the leadership of Roman Reigns. A lot of people are not thinking about that because, of course, Solo Sikoa is the younger brother of Jimmy and Jay. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens. But overall, even though I like the involvement of the Usos, nothing impactful really happened on this show, and that is the biggest takeaway that I can give you guys. But yeah, that was my SmackDown review from June 23rd, 2023. Overall thoughts on the show. The show wasn't really good. Nothing special at all happened on the show. It was really nothing match after nothing match after nothing match after nothing match after nothing match. No, I don't want to say real build towards Money in the Bank on this show. I mean, we are excited for Money in the Bank, and I think Money in the Bank is going to be a phenomenal show. But again, nothing special at all. Nothing was really, of sheer importance on this SmackDown show. Really, if you missed SmackDown this week, you really missed nothing if you really think about it. But yeah, that was my SmackDown review from June 23rd, 2023. Please like, subscribe, comment down below, push that bell for notifications. Be on the lookout for more videos right here on the WrestleHavoc Podcast, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content, and as the friggin' referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. And as always, it is Flamin' Ricky DeRays from the WrestleHavoc Podcast, signing out. I'll see you guys for AEW Collision. Peace.